Toastmasters, guests, we need to talk about something that important. People all over the world are engaged in kind of a scary habit, including people in this room. They do this even though they know it will involve partial paralysis, a drop in your core temperature, hallucinations, muscle twitching. You'll even slow down your breathing and your heart rate. Talking, of course, about sleep. We all do it, we all need to do it. We spend about a third of our lives doing it, and many of us know we need to get better at it. But some of us have a little more work to do in order to achieve that. We all know about cutting down on screen time, exercising, and eating healthy. However, some of us have a little more work we have to do. I didn't really take this seriously until my older brother once got a diagnosis of obstructive sleep apnea and had gotten treatment for it and talked about how much better he felt. One of the tricky things about this is that it's very easy to adapt to certain conditions and receive it as normal. It's normal to sometimes get sleepy at 5 o'clock, or even at 10 o'clock in the green auditorium, right? Well, it turns out some people do stay awake all morning and still feel okay at 5 o'clock, and I had no idea. So I thought I should take this more seriously. A quick overview though. Sleep apnea, or obstructive sleep apnea, as opposed to central sleep apnea, which has to do with your brain, involves some tissue falling down. So this is what a normal thread is supposed to look like at that air flowing through. Here's obstructive sleep apnea, where your tongue and other soft tissue in the back of your palate fall down to block the airways, causing snoring, and often preventing you from breathing for sometimes more than a minute. And often people won't notice until they fall asleep around other people who pick up on the snoring or the lack of breathing. And it's a big deal because, like other poor sleep, it can cause some long-term consequences. Everything from daytime fatigue to high blood pressure, diabetes, metabolic issues, complications with surgery, because a lot of anesthesia also slows you down, and this can become dangerous if you slow down too much when complicated with apnea. Liver problems, and most importantly, sleep-deprived partners. And I've got a visual to help you out. This is an artist's rendition of me and my wife here, her contemplating murder at 2:30 in the morning. So it's a big deal, and I know I needed to do something about it. So it raises the question of why it took so long to get started, which is that it is expensive and kind of a pain in the butt. So let's go on the journey of diagnosis. In order to find out if you actually have sleep apnea, you need to do a study, and you have to do this at home these days. So what happens is you go to a doctor, and they give you some equipment to take home with you for a few days, and it is exactly as comfortable as this drawing makes it look. As you can see, there are things that go up your nose, there's things that go on your skin. I don't remember if I had a belt or not, I may have blocked that out. There was also a thing I had to put around my head to measure brain activity, which meant I couldn't sleep on my side like this guy does, in which I had been used to doing, and had to sleep on my back. After 3 nights, I finally had data, and I returned the equipment safely, which was important because if I lost or damaged it, I owed them $4,000. I have a 4 and a 6-year-old, so that was a real possibility, and I'm forever grateful for them not finding and destroying the stuff. So I got my data and I turned it in. The way they measure this is through the AHI, which stands for Apnea Hypopnea Index. Apnea means you stop breathing, hypopnea means your breathing is so shallow it's not really helpful. Believe it or not, it's considered normal for people to stop or have shallow breathing up to 5 times an hour. If you go above that, you start getting into mild or moderate apnea, up to 30 interruptions where it becomes severe. For mild or moderate apnea, they consider things like putting these things up your nose or putting an appliance in your mouth to move your jaw forward to open up your airways. However, yours truly scored a 33, which is in the severe category, which meant they wanted to try a CPAP machine, which stands for Continuous Positive Airway Pressure, also known as running a vacuum in reverse, attaching it to a mask and putting it on your face. So what has to happen once they do that diagnosis is they have to see if the treatment will actually work. And for this, you actually have to go into a facility. A sleep study facility is kind of like a dentist's office at a Motel 6 had a baby. So you walk in and it looks all medical and clean, but there are these weird bedrooms all around the perimeter, where you go in and they hook you up to some very similar things that you took home with you, except they also have the machine on, as well as a video camera and a microphone. It's extremely cozy. So here you are in a strange room in an office park on a weeknight. After a nurse has hooked you up, you do get to wear your own pajamas. You're not actually in a nursing cab. Some people go to sleep, but they have to try on different kinds of masks. So of course I tried on the least obstructive one, but it turned out that leaked. So then she gave me the one that covered like my entire face, which I lasted 30 seconds with before I ripped it off in a panic. Where we finally compromised was one that just covered my nose. So we finally did that, and it turned out it worked, although I have no recollection at all of sleeping that night. This is what I remember being like the entire time. However, I can't argue with the data. Apparently I went to sleep, and my reward was to pay a few $100s to take this bad boy home. This is my face Dyson. It has another name, but I don't remember it. It's made by Philips Electronics Company. Let's go over some of the features. So, what we have here is an LCD screen that helps you pick some of the options. Here is where you put an air filter in so that the air is clean. The air gets sucked in through here, and this is where the water is stored to humidify the air, which makes it much more comfortable, and so you don't have a runny nose when you wake up, which is what happens if you shove dry air up there. There is then a hose that attaches to it, which then goes to the mass. It also has a modem in there that broadcasts all your data back to your provider to prove to your insurance company that you actually use this. So they'll continue to pay for all the parts that you need to maintain it. So where are we now that I have this thing? Well, I've got the data that I actually use this, and it has made a difference. As you can see, my AHI is no longer in the 30s. I'm averaging about 2.5. Which is great, and I can feel the difference. I was able to feel it immediately. And it raises the question of what we need to do now that we're partners and parents and growing older in the world with each passing year. And you can feel a little bit pity for yourself when you have to do all this extra stuff to do something that you used to take for granted. But I found this quote inspirational. It's from Audre Lorde, who said that caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it's self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. It's a very strong statement for this story, but it makes me feel a lot cooler when I put that mask on and much less dorky. And it also lets me know that I'm taking care of myself, which involves taking care of the people I love as well. And so with that, I leave you be and wish you great health in 2020 and encourage you to take those extra steps you need to be the best version of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you for completing the second and final speech for your evaluation and feedback project with a speech entitled "A Wind in My Throat." So this was the second iteration of the speech, and I was the evaluator on the first speech, so this makes it a little bit easier for me on this evaluation. And so I want to start the evaluation by highlighting the things that were suggested for improvement or things that you potentially work on in this speech so that we can, as we go throughout the evaluation, it's clear I can highlight those things for you. So I believe in that speech, you did a great job as always, but we highlighted that potentially you could slow down the pace at which you provide the speech, not rely on sort of cue cards, and to challenge yourself to use graphics. And I think you did all three, which was an excellent job. So you started, you're clear, you're comfortable with how you talk to the audience and how you engage with the audience. It's brilliant the way in which you infuse humor into your speeches. Every speech, you infuse humor, whether it's a serious topic or whether it's a non-serious topic, and I really do appreciate that. You were able to leverage visuals, which really told the story of what you were trying to share with the audience. I remember being really interested in seeing what a face Dyson was, and I was actually able to see that this time, so that was great. Your speech was well organized, as always. You highlighted sort of how you figured out you had this issue, which was your brother figuring out that he had sleep apnea, and then you sort of tied it back to things that you were experiencing in yourself. You did a great job highlighting the importance of sleep and all the different significant factors that it can have on your life and on your lifespan. And then tying that back into how important it is as an adult and as you have more responsibility, be it family, children, things like that, to take care of yourself. And the way you tied it all together and then at the end of it brought it home, I think that was really, really awesome. So thank you very much for that as well. Because this is the second iteration of a speech you did previously, I think it's a little bit harder to find things in which you can improve upon. But one thing that I did notice that was different from the first speech to your second iteration of the speech was how organized it was. So in the first speech you had a why, and then a solution, and that was the sleep study, and then you talked about how that bettered your life and all the positive effects that it had on you, and then you ultimately closed with, this is why we should take care of ourselves and so we can be there for our families. And I think because of the infusion of the graphics and things like that, we sort of lost a little bit of the organization of the speech. So we started off with how you found it, how you found out the issue. You started off with, why it took so long. Then you got to the sleep study. And then I got a little bit lost in terms of the transition between the sleep study and then the positive effects that it had on you. And I think it's because we spent so much time looking at face dicing and all the different graphics, which I think added a lot of value to the speech as well. So maybe one thing to try to work on in the future is try to, when you're infusing different elements into your speech, such as not relying on the cue cards and relying on graphics and things like that, try to maintain different elements of the organization, which I think made the first iteration of your speech so awesome as well. So all in all, you did a great job. You look very comfortable as always. You're a great speaker, and I look forward to more speeches.